said that means we're live.
I was privileged enough to meet back in July with the chairman of the Georgia Department of Transportation, and he's coming on September the 6th, all right? We'll be at the Botanical Gardens at noon. We have invited all of the elected officials in the coastal empire, and you see up on the monitor, you will see the front page of the study that GDOT did. And what I've asked staff to do is to look at our SPLOST program, as well as give us an update on our SPLOST program, as well as look at what GDOT is proposing, all right, and what the study shows. And then Chairman McMurray and his staff will be here on the 6th to do that now. Let me say to the general public, you can access the study on the website, or on GDOT's website. You can pull it up, and for those commissioners, you'll get a booklet at the end of this presentation. You'll get a booklet on the study yourself, all right, so that it prepares you, and that's what we wanted to do today, prepare you for the upcoming workshop that GDOT will be doing here, okay? And
What time is it on September?
it's on noon, at noon.
12 o'clock.
Yeah, September 12th, September the 6th
At 12
at noon at the Botanical Gardens, okay? And they will be here to make the presentation. And I want you to see what I saw in today. I want you to see what I saw in July, okay? And then when GDOT comes, it wouldn't be just new to you, it wouldn't be foreign to you, but it gives you a chance to study it, all right? With that, I want to turn it over to the manager, and Mr. Manager, if you can direct us where we go from here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As the Chairman indicated, we're going to give you a brief overview of the Coastal Empire Transportation Study. And as he indicated, Commissioner McMurray and his staff will be in attendance on the 6th to kind of go into detail and solicit feedback from elected officials in the Coastal Empire. I'm going to ask this morning for our county engineer, Ms. Cooler, to go kind of walk you through the executive summary. And we do have copies of the full report for you to take with you today. And we just ask that you thumb through it so you get a kind of an idea of what the commission will be going over. He's indicated, and his staff's indicated, that this is designed to address, traffic issues in our area, and with the growth of the economic growth that we're experiencing with Hyundai and the expansion of the ports, it's going to be real critical that we pay attention to our transportation needs in this area. So that is what we are looking at. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cooler and let her kind of walk you through it.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay from here?
Gotcha.
So this study, I want to point out, the main purpose of the study was to develop alternatives, look at our road system. Look at our road system as it is being impacted by growth, as the county manager said. The important things to note is that they did realize when they projected out that our industrial development is expected to double to 20 million square feet in the next 10 years. The impacts of that to our roadways and our highways is that it is expected to double or even triple traffic volumes on the state routes and local roads. The main goal of this was how do we get that in freight to the ports quicker and out without impacting local traffic or minimizing the impact of local traffic. They looked, the extent of the study was the Coastal Empire. In case you don't know, that's Chatham, Bryan, Bullock, and Effingham counties. They looked at all the local counties and modeled that impact and came up with over 20 potential projects that had a positive benefit to cost ratio. So they looked not only at what they thought would work, they also looked at what the cost to implement versus the benefits, and over 20 of those projects had that positive benefit to cost ratio, and they would recommend moving forward with. The study also looked at potential funding for those projects. We're talking about over $1 billion in projects over the next few years to accommodate that growth. So it looked at various funding sources and identified some of those, which primarily are federal funding sources. In addition to those 20 actual projects, they identified 6 corridors that need further studying. And that just means we need to see what happens, and then we need to study it further because it didn't quite meet that threshold. I did give you a couple of points of highlight on there, and also the table of the projects I highlighted. You'll notice on here that I highlighted those that are located in Chatham County. And primarily, they are located in Chatham County because, as I said, this is about getting freight to the port and out of the port. And with these projects, it was identified that accessibility to the ports from 93% of the planned industrial growth will be within 1 hour. So keeping in mind, this is from Bullock County, Bryan, Effingham. So this is the majority, 93% of that industrial growth being able to get to the ports within 1 hour is what with these planned improvements. Again, you can look at the list of projects if you have any questions about them specifically. I have read the whole report and can answer little questions, but the other thing to point out is that staff, engineering staff, Nathaniel Panther, Pamela Bernard did participate in the advisory committee, so they did give local input on this study. So they are aware of the problems we already have and and problems we were already looking at, and they studied those even further. I think the biggest advantage is with federal funding, you have to start with a study. You can't just go in and ask for money. They want to study. They want to know that you've looked at alternatives, you've evaluated whether there's a true benefit, and this study gives us that on several of our local roads, that we can now go ask for federal funding, saying, yes, it's been studied. A couple of the local roads, the majority of the projects are assumed that GDOT will actually lead the projects and do them. A couple of the projects they're identifying that will be local led, and that just means that the Chatham County will do the actual project administration. That's John Carter Road widening, Old River Road widening. Truman Parkway at East Bay Street, and then a couple of intersections. But for the most part, the major projects will be GDOT will secure the funding, GDOT will administer the projects and do the construction. Any questions on any of that?
I just have one question, and I guess it's kind of a rhetorical question. I suppose these all have to be state roadways, not like any county roadways.
No, like I said, John Carter Road widening, Old River Road widening, those are local county roads.
You know, I'm concerned, and I know it's a sticky widget, but I'm concerned about roads like that causeway onto Burnside with one way on and one way off, and the danger of residents being stuck on an island like that, that you don't have any alternative except that one causeway. And, you know, we've talked about what we can do to ensure the safety of the residents there, but this would, to me, seem like a project that ought to at least be looked at here.
Right, this study specifically was about industrial growth and getting freight to and from the port. So it wouldn't address those local issues.
But, all right,
And to
I
address
just-
that, and on local level within staff, those are some of the issues that we're gonna have on our list that's gonna be outside of this study here. But we do take into consideration issues like that.
well, I mean, I just worry about with one way on and one way off, the safety of residents. I mean, you know, the same thing applies with Highway 80 to Tybee. I understand that, but, you know, we're very fortunate to live in a beautiful location with islands that are out on the end of causeways. But when it comes to a disaster, a natural disaster, don't seem to be very good at planning how we're going to get people off. And that's just a concern.
And that has to come from us first.
Okay.
Before it goes to GDOT, it has to come from us first. So that's what the manager is saying. We looking at those kind of issues,
Okay.
especially GDOT will have to be involved if we ever did anything for Highway 80 going to Tybee.
Right.
Okay, because that is a federal and a state highway. The same way would be with the causeway, okay? Staff can start to do the study, but then we have to do a study in order to get any state or federal monies for that. So that's what we are saying. Those are the things that come from the local side.
And I will say that we have applied for several grants to look at the causeway issue, because we do have a couple of them in the county, and to look at the impacts of sea level rise, climate change on
Exactly.
those causeways, and look at alternatives. We have applied for several grants to do that work.
It's just, you know, now that we are addressing higher water levels and that kind of stuff, I look at these roadways and it makes me very nervous to think. And the picture of, I guess it was Irma, a couple of the pictures of the causeways where they were not passable. So, that's all.
Okay.
It's just a real concern that I have.
Go ahead, Commissioner. You, go ahead.
I heard you mention $1 billion. What would Chathams County part be of that? Do you know? Yeah.
No, we don't know. It will depend on the funding sources for all these various projects, on how much of that would be local match or.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farrell.
All right. Something I've mentioned in the past, and I'd like to bring it up again, is when World War II began and the municipal airport was turned into Hunter Army Airfield and turned into a base, they closed down Middle Ground Road. And I think it would be worth looking into the possibility of extending Middle Ground Road on its old footprint and connect over to US 17 and give the county another alternative way to transport people and cargo or whatever back and forth. If we're looking out to 2050 with all this new growth and all this other stuff, I think it'd be worth looking at, you know, approaching the Defense Department and seeing if there's some access that we could get that road back and put it back in use for the civilians.
Okay, we can look at that.
You know, it wouldn't be breaking new ground, it'd just be going back to what was there 75 years ago and building it up and improving it and having it available for the traveling public in Chatham County to access and free up a little bit of congestion on some of the other 204s and the Lions Parkways.
Now Middle Ground now runs into 204, right?
Well, if you take Abercorn on Middle Ground, you'll notice that it goes along the side of Hunter, and then it takes a hard left,
Right.
where it should be going straight on. But because of the base, they fenced it off and cut off that road, just like they took the airport part of the fence, you know, back in the World War II era. And I'm just saying, you know, you got a huge swath of Chatham County that's in that base, which we love the base and everything they do. But it'd be nice to have that travel corridor open back up, especially with all the growth going on, to take a little bit of pressure off some of these other roads and have better access going in that direction back and forth.
Well, we can ask that that be looked at and see what kind of response we get back. But those are some of the questions and comments that the commissioner is looking for when he gets everybody together. So we'll make sure that, you know, that's addressed. Any other questions from the board? I will say, and I won't speak for the chairman or Ms. Kramer, but I was impressed at the level of detail and that the commissioner and his staff had put into this study when we met with them. So when we sat across the table from him, they really had a good handle on what's happening here in Chatham County, and he was really sincere in wanting input back from the elected officials in this area. So we hope that that when you look at the study, you come prepared to have a discussion with them and provide input, because I think that's what he really wanted to make sure that, you know, the chairman set this meeting up so we can get everybody in this region together so we can provide him with the necessary input. It was said that if we don't do anything, your travel time here in Chatham County in this region is going to double if we don't do anything. So I think this is a good step in the right direction. So.
Let me say, speaking for the manager or Ms. Kramer, that's the reason why I asked him to come say it himself, all right? Is because of the knowledge he had of this area, and the knowledge his staff had, and the things that they were presenting. I thought that it would be better for us to hear from them rather than hearing from me, okay? Because what they were doing was briefing me so that I could come back and brief you. And so I said, that's good, but I prefer you to come and we could set it up so that all 4 counties are there together. And that's why we have invited, and I hope that you will talk to your constituents. That's why I have invited all of the elected officials, all right? We can't get the whole counties in there, but we can get all of the elected officials at that briefing. And then that way you'll be able to talk to your constituents more about what's coming, and then ask your question. One of the things I don't like doing is asking people questions for them, all right? I'd rather you ask your question to get your answer. And so that's why we're giving you this briefing today of where our SPLOST program is and what the study has shown that GDOT took upon themselves, all right? And they have even gone to the legislators and talked to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House to talk about this report and what it shows, all right? When I first contacted them, right after we did the Jimmy DeLoach dedication, all right, this study was in progress, and so we waited, but in July the 3rd, we were able to go to Atlanta and to sit in his office with him and his staff and let them make the presentation that they're bringing. Now, we're not making their presentation today. They're coming to do their own presentation, so you get it firsthand. But this is designed to spark your questions and your curiosity and to bring up some of the facts that maybe they don't know the history of any of the roads and things that we're talking about, we can talk about, okay? So maybe they don't know about the causeway and things, but putting that into our coffin and our staff can then take it to them because the way I understand this study that GDOT is doing, they're trying to connect federal dollars, state dollars, as well as local dollars in this endeavor. And it's not a tomorrow program. This is long-term, all right? So some of these things will happen, start to happen next year, all right? But the study had to be done because that's federally what they require. Commissioner Adams.
How long is this study gonna be?
This study is going to, it can be up at what, 10 to 15 years?
The study's complete.
The study is complete. They've done the study. They didn't release this until they completed the study. But the things that are in the study have to be implemented, all right? And understand that this is a roadmap, and we get the chance to take the roadmap, how it's going to affect Chatham County, okay? So when you look at this, the study says coastal empire. But in the coastal empire, there's direct reference to the roads and things in Chatham County, okay? Now, there are emphasis in here where the road will cross. In fact, you take one that you mentioned, that John Carter Road, all right? That's gonna touch bases with both Effingham and Bryan County, all right? I-16 itself, you're looking at it now, but when you get through looking through this study, rather than being a 4-lane, it may become a 6-lane, all right? All the way up to the other side of 301 on the backside of Statesboro going into Reuben County. That's in the study, okay?
We're trying to put a page up here of one of the projects so that you guys can kind of.
One of the projects for Chatham County.
Yeah.
So within the study, they have a project sheet for each of the identified projects that looks similar to this for all of them.
And you'll have monitors on the wall too, if you can't see
Yeah.
that.
But it lays out the project description, the estimated cost. It even tells you what the benefit cost ratio was. And it gives a brief description and tells you who they identified would be the project lead for each of the projects.
And see, that's State Route
So
204.
this one specifically, State Route 204, and it's a widening of 204 in Chatham County from Old River Road to 95. They expect that one to be a GDOT lead because it is a state route. It's to provide primarily a parallel access. If, let's say, I-16 is shut down for some reason and they need a parallel access to get to 95, then the intent here is that would provide it.
And that's a part of the booklet that you're gonna give them at the end of this meeting, all right? You're gonna get this, okay? You will get all of them. In fact, when you get GDOT study, it will not only cover 204, okay? But on the other side, you see John Cutter, you see Belfast Keller, which is in Bryan County. All right. All that, but you're gonna get this, all right, at the end of the presentation, but which will be for our purpose.
The map of all the identified projects is also in there.
Right.
And you can see that it covers all of the referenced counties. And the ones that I said they identified for further study are also shown in. So
The I-16 widening, is that the current project underway now, or is that additional
no,
widening?
that is from Bullock or Bryan County to 95. So it's the part that's west of 95.
Yeah. The part that they know they're gonna have to open up.
Any other questions from the board? If not, we just wanted to let you know, give you a preview of what the Commissioner will be talking about on the 6th. It's our plan to kind of keep you updated on this regularly. So, when you get the booklets today, please take the time to look through it and note any questions you have, and we'll take that up with the Commissioner when he comes in on the 6th. That's in the agenda.
All right.
Next, we'll go through our SPLOST update, and it's staff's goal to update you on this quarter. I know we've been providing some information in our monthly road and drainage report, but we thought it'd be a better idea to let's get you together quarterly to go through this, and we'll update the numbers, update the projects on a quarterly basis, so you'll see exactly where we are and what kind of progress we're making. So I'm going to ask, Schooler has a slide presentation. We're going to go through that, and happy to answer any questions you may have on any of the SPLOST projects that the county has in the works and what we have planned. So, Ms. Cooler.
Okay. Good morning again. So we put this together to show the status of the SPLOST program. It's important to note that all the numbers in here, as far as expenditures and revenue, are as of June 30th, because that was the end of the quarter. Okay, let's get started. First, we wanted to show you, and again, I didn't put all this together, this was finance, so hats off to finance for putting all this together. total revenue in all the SPLOST. Total revenue in all the SPLOST is over $2 billion. That revenue includes tax collected, investment earnings, property sales, grant reimbursements. So it's not just tax collected. And this first chart shows you that, so the blue here in each of these columns is the actual tax collected. The rest, the orange being investment earnings and the gray being those others, which are property sales, reimbursements from grants, and so forth. Of all those revenues, we've had expenditures and obligations of nearly all the $2 billion, but it's $1.9 billion. This one, this is one of my favorites. It shows that, it shows you the expenditures against what was collected. The blue, again, is what was collected in taxes, the orange investment earnings, and the gray is that other category. The yellow there are things that we have already expended. So in most cases, and I'd say all except for 7, which we're still collecting and haven't expended all of that, and then in 6, and I'll explain why 6 when we get there, in all the others, we have expended all of the collected tax dollars. Any residual money there is that investment earning and or reimbursements from grant funds or property sales. I know this is a lot of charts and tables, so stop me if you have questions.
So explain the total unencumbered.
So total unencumbered is just that. It's residual money that's in the account now that has not been encumbered by a contract.
Okay, but it will be?
Well, it will be as the projects are developed.
Okay, all right, but it's not just like a cast aside.
Right, it's not cast aside. This is budgeted. I mean, we have project budgets set for all the funds, but this is money that has not been contracted yet.
Okay. It's unencumbered to me, it's kind of a loose term, shall we say?
Well, and that's one of the things we want to do as we proceed with this is we want to make sure, number one, we're giving you the information you want, and we want to make sure we're on the same page with you in terms of what terms and definitions are. So when we give this to you on a quarterly basis, you'll kind of understand, what we mean when we give this to you.
And unencumbered also does not mean like it can be shifted somewhere else, right?
So when you, as you're earning money on these funds over time, you add projects to it. And in order to close out one of these funds, you only have 2 options. You can pay off GO debt, or you can transfer it to the general fund to reduce your taxes. So you would have to use it to lower the millage rate.
So my point being is it can't go anywhere else.
Correct.
All right.
It's restricted as to what you can do with it.
Yeah, but unencumbered and unencumbered sounds to me like a kind of a loose.
Right.
Restricted sounds a little different to me.
That's them finance terms.
Right.
I go along with them finance terms. That's what they use.
I get it, but it just, unencumbered means it's not hooked to anything.
Yeah, there's no contracts on it.
Right.
Any more questions on that?
So just to be clear on that, when you guys approve a contract on the purchasing agenda, purchasing takes that and sets up a contract in the financial system, that amount, and a PO number or an encumbrance is issued at that point.
Okay.
And that moves across fiscal years. So that contract will stay on the books until it's completed and all the payments are made against it.
that sets the money over here so that we don't say, oh, look, we've got all this money to spend, and we start spending
That was
it.
my concern.
The money's spoken for.
It's like your checkbook, you put in a ledger for when you've got a check that you sent out, even though it's still in there, you've set it out, that check, so.
Gotcha.
Y'all remember me saying when I first took office, put your credit cards up? That's what that meant. You wasn't, because we had that money sitting there, don't mean you can just go in there and throw it where you want it to go, but it's gotta go through the restrictions of where you could, what you can and cannot do with it.
So then we're talking about actual number of projects. And all the SPLOST combined, we've identified a total of 593 projects. Of those, 513 have been completed to date. We have 12 under construction, 37 currently under design, and 31 are in planning, which means we're in the initial stages of starting that design, or we're identifying locations for projects and doing initial concepts. Questions? And that's all SPLOST combined. We'll talk about each SPLOST individually.
Transportation only.
No, that's all of it. Oh, the one thing I should mention also is you've got a separate handout that has a list of all the completed projects. And it is separated into categories. So it's got the various categories that the project would fall within.
That's one thing.
Thank you for that question, because it reminded me. And sales tax one, again, we had a total revenue of 299 million. Of which, and again, that's tax collected, interest earning, other revenue.
It's going to be helpful to, and the school's going to kind of remind us of this, as we go through the different sales tax. In one, we've completed all of the required projects. All the projects we were required to, we've completed. And what we're working with now are investment earnings and reimbursement. So everything that we told the voters we were going to do in one, we've done.
But explain to them why you can't close one out, though.
Right, as Amy explained, we can't just cut it off and put the money elsewhere. We can decide we don't want to continue to do these other projects and then put the money back in general fund to reduce taxes or pay off debt, but we can't just move it to another SPLOST or any other fund. And that's something the board can decide to do. We can decide, hey, okay, well, we don't want to do any additional projects, so let's just stop doing projects and let's put that money back in the general fund.
The other thing you can do is complete the project, you can say, our project's infeasible, becomes obsolete, you don't need it anymore, maybe the state built the overpass instead of us, so you got some money set aside for it. You can go in and declare it infeasible, which y'all are capable of, pretty much in control there. And then you gotta go out for a referendum and ask them, hey, can we put this money, take it out of this project that we don't need and put it towards a project that we do need, that we're a little short. We've done that one time. We also gave a small rollback at that time.
Does that only apply to the referendum projects, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did that last
Did that-
year, didn't we?
Yes.
That's yeah.
Did that one.
Drainage, yeah.
Yeah, we repurposed $3.5 million, and that's the process they're talking about now. That money was sitting there, the project is completed, the money is just sitting there, and so we went back to the voters and asked them to repurpose that $3.5 million, and they did. And then we've got an additional grant money from the feds, that now that fund is $4 million. Okay, so that's what they're talking about, we did. So we've done that once, this board has.
Okay.
Sales tax one was, I know I've said this before, but in case you didn't hear me, is sales tax one could only be used for road projects. That was early SPLOST law, only allowed it to be used for road projects. And in one, we've completed 200 projects. We have a total of 205 identified in the SPLOST currently. Again, we've added projects using that residual money, or the investment earnings. And right now, we have 3 under construction and 2 in design, and you might not be able to read your handout, but hopefully read this one. That tells you which projects are in which phase. And I know this handout didn't print very well, so we can get them better copies if anybody's interested in something they can read. But you'll see that currently under construction, we have Lansing Avenue. We've got one more speed table to install on Lansing, and that'll be complete and closed out. Willow Lakes Drive, the board has issued a contract for that, and construction will begin soon. And then Johnny Mercer Boulevard intersection improvements, we did issue a contract for that as well, so that construction, which is why it's even though they may have not broken ground, those are included in construction because we've issued the construction contracts for those. The others in design are Skidway Road improvements. We are actually working on right-of-way acquisition for that right now, so that will begin construction next year. All the right-of-way is cleared. Robert McCorkle Bike Trail, although the trail itself, construction is complete, that money is actually being used to make some tie-ins to the trails, crosswalks, and sidewalk that is adjacent to the trail that'll help people get to that.
May I ask a question on the Skidaway Road improvement? That's up near the intersection of Norwood, Skidaway, and Ferguson.
Yes.
Okay. The sidewalks, there are going to be sidewalks?
There will be improvements just in that commercial area there, not outside of that, because we had issues, as you'll recall, with property owners not wanting anything done. So right now, we're just focusing on that commercial area. There will be some sidewalk installation, yes.
Well, and maybe this is a conversation that I need to have with you later, but apparently there have been some discussions with the Isle of Hope area saying they might like a walking path. So I don't know if that, since this, initially they did not want it, and we went ahead with the drainage improvements, whether now it's too late, but you know, that has been, it has resurfaced, and the request has been made for a walking path to get up to the commercial area up there.
We do have that listed as a potential project, a future project, not part of this project, but a future sidewalk or project.
When you say future, how many years out are we talking? I mean, like, am I still gonna be alive? I mean,
I understand, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Don't worry, I know exactly.
Yes, I would say in our 5-year plan.
And that's,
this question's gonna come up.
and that's another thing that we are going to be talking to you about. We are looking at putting priorities on some of these things. So if you've got a priority that is really burning in your district, just let us know, and then we'll try to program it in.
Well, I think all the talk with the Tide the Town and more walkways and more pedestrian access as people are beginning to think it's a good idea to walk to a restaurant and eat rather than drive. You know, those kind of things, more health-conscious people. Whereas before, I don't think 10 years ago when this was first brought up, that was maybe even on some people's radar.
I do know that some of these have been non-starters. Staff will start reaching out to the community, start doing some initial planning, and then we get a lot of pushback from the community, and then it gets put on the shelf. So we just want to make sure that the project is actually going to be completed when we go out and start doing that.
I agree. And this was not anything that the county did wrong. I mean, initially, they said they didn't want it.
Correct.
And now they're saying they do, so I know that that's a problem. and
Depends on
as
who
of,
you talk to, it really does.
Yeah.
That's a very tight project as far as where we're gonna get the right of way to widen it and do all the things, but we're gonna condemn it. But every one of those is a business. We're gonna take the cleaners out, we're gonna take 2 gas stations out, we're gonna take the parking in Jalapenos, or we're gonna go to the other side of the road and take parking to those restaurants over there. So you start adding on.
I think,
If you ask them whether they want a sidewalk or restaurants, you'll get a different answer.
well, I think it can be done. I think that if you get just outside of that commercial area, as you get to the little bridge there, it could be done. It's just, and without impacting the businesses or anything else. I mean, I think there's space for it, but I'm not an engineer and I'm not gonna say there is. I'm just saying that now the request has been made.
And then too, you have to understand, especially when you're just talking about Skidaway Island now, Skidaway Road. If you're talking about from Ferguson Avenue going back into Isle of Hope, all that's down there where, what is that, the marsh or whatever that is down there, that might be possible. But if you're talking about Ferguson Avenue to Montgomery Crossroad on Skidaway, those folks don't want you to bother those trees, and they don't want you, and their houses are right up against right up against the street. So it's 2 different conversations, and that's why I think John was mentioning, it's according to who you talk to. Because if you talk to those folks that's in that strip, that's from Ferguson Road to Skidaway, you better not come down and they're talking about putting no sidewalks in there and moving their
no, I
trees
was
down. Yeah,
actually
but on the other side, you talking about,
I'm
because the
talking,
restaurant
to
knows
go-
it here.
Going on to the Isle of Hope.
Island, yeah, going to Isle of Hope. And that's a conversation that we probably will have, but like you say, the first time it was introduced to them, they said no.
That's right, they did. They actually said
So-
no. I was there.
We'd have to go and restart some conversation. Okay, Commissioner?
My question is, to piggyback, when was sales tax 1 started?
1985.
85.
That's what I thought, that's what I thought.
And then it was extended, so, for some additional collections that first SPLOST was.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Lockett?
Okay, on Lansing Avenue, you mentioned the fact that there will be some traffic coming there, but I noticed down on Washington Street, you're gonna stop at Garfield, but just around the bend there, which is Washington, they're having some of the same problems, if not worse. I noticed you did not go up to Washington Street there. Am I communicating?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just-
Is there a question, or you're wondering why?
I'm asking what, yeah, that is a question. And also, I would like to see something done about it, because we have a lot of complaints by the residents up in there about, and there's some of the same thing that's going on
Lansing.
down on Lansing.
Okay, so the process for looking at various roads are, if you'll communicate that to the county manager and make a request, we will do a speed study, where we'll go in and we'll do a speed study and we'll look at, is there actual speeding? Because a lot of times there's perceived speeding and it's just a few people that need to be told to slow down. If there really is a problem, we'll look at solutions. But we have to start with that speed study first.
There is a problem.
Give it to Mike.
I already got
Yeah,
it.
give it to Mike.
He's aware of it.
Okay.
We can go.
Any more
Anything else?
questions on SPLOST 1?
All right, go ahead.
Sales tax 2, we had a total revenue, again, interest earnings and grant reimbursements, and tax collected of $234 million. And this included, and in sales tax 2, we expanded into beyond just roads, into drainage and other things. And the projects got bigger in size, so the number of projects get smaller as we progress. We've had a total of 101 projects, and right now there is only 1 project outstanding, and that is one that was added after the fact. It was not a referendum project, and it's youth football, and there is money sitting there for youth football. And at the moment, should be covered. At the moment, it's in planning because specific improvements haven't been identified.
but we don't have any plan, do we?
Yeah. We had a couple of locations that we were looking at that didn't pan out, so we're still looking for a location to build that youth football complex. So that's part of our 5-year plan, so we'll be coming back with you some recommendations on that.
Let me ask this question now, since we're talking of, and the project is youth football?
Yes.
Okay. How much more would it be if we turn that into multipurpose rather than just youth football? All right, because, youth football is only for a period of time. And I don't think we need to be spending money where it's gonna be used for 3 months and sit idle for 9 more months, all right? But if it was multipurpose, all right? I know it says youth football, and that was the term used back then, but I think it's more feasible for us now to look at it as multipurpose rather than, we don't have a location or anything like that, but we know how much money we have, right?
Right, and generally, the fields we have constructed in the recent years have been multipurpose fields.
Okay, all right. So can we take away the term youth football and put multipurpose?
I think that would be good because
Yeah.
soccer is so popular now and pickleball is coming. So,
Maybe put football / multipurpose.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some people in the community that feel like maybe that we're not giving enough attention to football. As a former football player and a former soccer player, I get it's a subtle nuance, but perhaps we could.
And plus, what did we ask the voters to vote on?
No, that wasn't.
This was
That wasn't one. That wasn't one, no.
One, and two, and again, it's just a nuance, but the project name is youth football, and it's allocated for youth football. We build multipurpose fields as long as they accommodate football, that meets.
It carries in.
Yes.
Can I ask another question? Not for this complex, but the Thomas Avenue landfill, which is exactly identical twin to the Charlie Brooks site that we have on Wilmington Island, but it's located off of the Truman between Montgomery Crossroads and Whitfield Avenue. Having dealt with Charlie Brooks, I can't recommend that we put a lot of structures over there because of the very unstable environment that's there. However, I do firmly believe that leveling that place and mowing the grass short and opening those gates for the general public to come out and use that acreage as they see fit would be very similar to when I was a youth around Memorial Stadium, when you had the Circle M, well, it was not Circle M, that was by the riding club was where the pool is, but there was another riding facility over there by Memorial Stadium, and there were some open fields that were they were just open fields that were mowed but unimproved, where our parking lots and all are now. And people would come out and hit golf balls, they'd go out and do whatever. It was unstructured, but it was available to the public. There was no fences, there was no hours. You could go out there and use your local county property. My suggestion is that we level that, it's pretty level, but level that earth, so that it doesn't, because nobody's had access to it since it's been closed. But level the earth and let whatever grass will grow there and mow it short and have those gates open during daylight hours and let folks go out there. I can recall as a teenager, we had a little city league football team. We didn't have a place, we weren't sponsored by anybody except, we just got together and some coaches put together a team. And we had permission to use a piece of St. James Field off of Montgomery Crossroads. It wasn't much bigger than this room. But we learned how to play football on that, that for a couple of years. And I'm not saying that it should be football or hit golf balls or whatever, just make it available for people to have access to, because there's such a limited amount of open space for the general public to come out and hit grounders with their child Sunday afternoon, or, you know, whatever it is that they want to do, throw a Frisbee. So I'd like to take a closer look at opening up that access. And there's some beautiful ponds on the back side of that you can't see from the Truman, that if we cleaned up around them and had that access, you could go fishing back there or have a picnic or just take a walk. But it's a nice little, very large, nice piece of property that this county and this board controls, and we've just got it in lockdown and just kind of put it in mothballs, and we're doing nothing with it. So I think if we could spend a minimal amount of money on it just to get it where you could open the gates and let folks use it, and it'd probably bubble up from the general public how they, you know, if they wanted some improvements. But however, like I said, with Charlie Brooks, seeing how things settle, and they're very difficult to build anything of a long-term nature out there, you know, maybe not go that far, but I'd like to see it opened up to the public without any, you know, big restrictions. Just, you know, if you want to practice softball or soccer or football or baseball, or just hit golf balls or walk around and get some fresh air or whatever.
Or ride your horse.
Ride your horse.
Would, question I would ask, John, and I think it would be a question for you. Since it was a landfill, are there any requirements that we do before we could open that up?
We'd have to get permission to, well, we can't open it because there's about a foot of clay on top of it, as I recall, which is a cap. EPA will get very upset if we were to disturb that. But he might be able to do what Commissioner Farrell was saying, but, you know, we looked at it at one time for, I can't remember whether it was a football field or a baseball field. And then somebody said, well, why don't we put lights on it? And, well, you gotta have a foundation to put the light pole in, which means you gotta dig down. And that was like a not no, but really no. So, I mean, as long as you did it limited, say, to daytime hours or something like that, as long as you didn't disturb the cap, as long as it bring in some earth that could grow stuff, yeah, you could possibly do that.
Yeah.
I thought we had talked with DNR about it, Suzanne.
We had, and then the big, as John said, was no, you can't dig anything down, you can't put any lighting in.
Okay.
And plus, I remember, and the reason I asked that question is because, as Commissioner Farrell was saying, I remember something about, didn't we have a problem with a child playing on the landfill, and something got on their skin or something? And maybe that wasn't here, but it was someplace else, that they allowed them to play, and some bacteria or something was, because it was a landfill, and folks saying, you should have known. You know how people are. That's why I asked that question, you know, so that we could put those things in focus. I'm like Commissioner Farrell. If we could open it up and people could use it without any problems, I have no problem, all right? But I don't want us to get into a ballgame and wind up into a lawsuit because somebody had contracted some kind of skin irritation on them.
We'll look at it, Mr. Chairman, and bring the board back some options on that.
All right?
Okay, any more questions on SPLOST 2? Sales tax 3. Sales tax 3, we had $276 million of total revenue. And 64 total projects. Currently, we have 12 projects out of the 64 that are either under construction, in design, or in the planning stage. You'll see, and like I mentioned when we looked at you'll see some big funded project in here that's keeping our unspent money up, and that is the SEMA facility is the biggest. There's $12 million in SEMA and $4 million in Quaco Road projects. I will mention Quaco Road right now is shown to be in design, but we did actually issue a contract to clear the right-of-way, and then we'll come back for a construction contract after that right-of-way is cleared and the utilities can be moved. So it's kind of partially in design and partially construction, but we went with the conservative in design.
Are we going all 4 lanes or at this point?
Yes, so currently, we're amending the design to do all 4 lanes instead of just the 3. We have purchased the right-of-way for the 4, so we don't have to go back to any of that. But they're doing the clearing of the right-of-way to accommodate 4, and we're amending the plans to accommodate, to build the 4 lanes.
That was one of the projects we talked with the DOT commissioner about, because we're going to need some help with the bridges over 95 on Waco and Little Neck. So he is familiar with it, and they've agreed to help us look at it. But there again, that is a long-term project.
And that would require federal approval and have to go through the federal process, so that is beyond the 5-year plan. But there will be 4 lanes on the Chatham County side and 4 lanes on the Pooler side, so that will force them to get moving on that approval.
I definitely approve of doing all that because it doesn't take a traffic engineer to figure out that we need as many arteries to move west to east as we can get.
Sure do.
And when Quaco's properly widened and signaled to Highway 17, and then if you brought the middle ground section across the base and tied it in somehow, now you've got a real artery that will take us into the future that hasn't been tapped to its fullest extent. And it would be equal to the Lions Parkway artery and the 204 artery. Now you got another artery going east and west. But if you don't start planning now and start working on it, you really need it, it will be even further behind and it'll be even more difficult. So I suggest that we look into the feasibility of and working with the Department of Defense, because they're going to have to work with us as a community to say, you know, we need that right of way back to put in use. We've put it on the sidelines for over 70 years, and you know, we've grown a lot since then, and it's a lot more important now than it was.
And we're gonna grow even more.
Oh, yeah.
So
So,
that was the chairman's take on that too. And like he said, the reason he would help us with the feds is because there's no need in widening the road and then coming back and widen the bridge. Might as well do it all while you're doing it. Because if you widen the road, you got 4 lanes,
Funneling
2 lanes going in each way, but you be funneling it into a 1-lane bridge. And that'll be disastrous.
now, one thing that I recall very vividly is when we replaced, with GDOT basically leading the way, but replaced the drawbridge going to Skidaway Island. It was brought up that why don't we build that as a 4-lane bridge, and we were quickly shut down and said, we will not build 4-lane bridges unless there's 4 lanes on each side.
Right.
So, lesson learned. Get 4-lane Quaco, 4-lane Pooler Parkway, and then say, okay, it's time. Because if, now, obviously, the most logical would be to do it all at the same time, but you're certainly not gonna get that 4-lane across the interstate without doing the 2 connectors on either side, so.
And I think the timing is right for that, because on the federal level, we have friends in transportation, all right? And so they see the need, but they're working well with the state, okay? And so now would be the time for us to say to them, we need you to give us permission to and work with us, because when you get your Coastal Empire study, all right, you're going to notice that in projects that they have in there, and Quaco, Little Neck, Quaco, John Carter, and all those in there, it's gonna say, federal funds available, all right, in the reading down there, so that those are things that we'll be asking to do and to go forth with.
Any more questions about any of the SPLOST 3 projects? I will point out that one of our projects in planning, the SS4A, which is the Safe Streets for All that we got the grant for, we are currently evaluating requests for proposals, so that will soon move out of design.
Let me make one request, all right, under the, still on 3, on this, page 14, all right? You see, and so that we don't have to fight that cat again. All right? Let's find another term rather than one Chatham project, okay? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
All
Got
right.
it. Okay.
I'm tired of it being called my slush fund. So let's change the terminology. We got projects, but we need to change the terminology so that they don't say that's my slush fund no more.
We'll
Countywide drainage is.
Hey, that'll be good. Whatever it is, just get it away from the word one Chatham.
Okay.
All right?
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Sales tax 4. We had a total of 98, to spend our $318 in revenue. We have a total of 98 projects, of which 92 are complete, 3 are currently in construction, 2 in design, 1 in planning. The list is there, and which includes Getaway Road, which we've already discussed. It's in multiple SPLOST. In construction are the Island drainage, Islands Expressway. Islands Expressway is on here because the county funded the design work. So although it's not the county's construction, it was one of our projects. Farley Brooks Park is under construction. SPLOST 4. Any questions about SPLOST 4?
About Charlie Brooks Park, can you give us a quick update of what's been accomplished and
Yes. So
potential completion?
the holdup on, I will say that it has been delayed or was delayed due to equipment for power. It took Georgia Power months and months to come and install transformers. But they have done that, so we now have that, which is good. So they're trucking along, and I should know completion date, but I don't know it right offhand. But I can certainly get that and get it to you.
One thing the chairman's requested that when we do these updates, we'll make sure we will have better completion dates listed on your handout. So we'll get that for you.
But yes, we were so glad that they finally are back to working and moving along and back on track. But Georgia Power has been, and then I will say in a lot of our projects, that's been a big holdup, is Georgia Power. And getting the equipment, there was a back order and short supply on transformers, and or at least that's what they tell us, and we can't, we gotta wait for them, but it has been installed. And we're very happy for that.
Quick question on the Isle of Hope drainage.
Yes.
So you're basically talking about the Barnett Drive.
Yes.
What else this is a significant sum of money, what else does this include?
This portion, so phase 1 right now that's under construction is the Barnett Drive.
And it's gonna cost that?
Yes, likely. Yes.
So just, and I don't want to belabor this, but why is that so expensive? I mean, I know you've got to get from the road all the way to
Well,
the outlet there, but
we're doing improvements to the outfall, so replacing the outfall, and then the improvements in between, and with the cost of construction like they are right now, I will say that our construction contracts are coming in anywhere from 30 to 50% more than what we budgeted in all this cost. And
30 to 50%?
I will, to piggyback on that, and the chairman will remember when we met with the GDOT commissioner, they're saying a lot of their projects are coming in at a level where they're having to shelf them because the construction costs and construction material with the graded aggregate and concrete, a lot of those costs are coming in, above what their construction estimates, and they're having to determine whether or not they're going to do the project with the costs that are coming in now. So she's right, it's costing us a lot more than we anticipated.
I just didn't know whether that involved hand crews and some of that location.
And I think we're going to pipe most of that in is what I remember.
it involves piping, it does involve some hand crews in some of the sensitive areas. It's significant. And again, the cost, thank goodness we have a booming economy in Chatham County and things are getting constructed, but that is costing us more because contractors, well, supplies are higher and contractors have more work than they can handle, so they're increasing costs.
So the only reason I ask that, this is just one little component of this drainage.
Yes.
And I agree, it's a very important component and a great place to start, but that's just an alarming number when you look at that, for just to do one part of this whole drainage project.
Right. You're gonna look at several $1 million on Isle of Hope when it's for all drainage improvements.
Wow.
Any other questions?
That's scary.
Sales tax 5, we've done a pretty good job of constructing our nearly $370 million total revenue. In sales tax 5, we had a total of 66 projects. 50 of those are complete, 2 are currently in construction. 7 are in design and 7 are in planning. Switch here, because this mic, it's not making easier to read. You have any questions about any of the projects?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
On the Nottingham Canal, how are we coming with that?
It's coming along. Again, we had some issues with materials and, concrete being one of them. But it's moving along now.
Good.
Questions on 5?
You want to talk about the Hedge Library?
Oh, sure. Hitch Library is included, and you'll see it in design. We are actually going to include that with the Early Learning Center, which is currently under design, and it will be attached to that. And that will take care of the Hitch Library obligation.
That was a specific ballot item.
And that was a referendum item, so that'll be good to close that out.
You want to give them an update on the Marine Patrol facility? We got that in 5 also.
Sure. Marine Patrol is shown in planning because right now we've identified a property on Hutchinson Island, which is where the Corps is currently obligated to build a boat ramp. As part of the harbor deepening, they cut off channels, so they had to put in a boat ramp on Hutchinson Island on the backside to make up for that. And we're going to, once that is constructed, they will turn the property over to the county so that the county can have the rest of the property to build the Marine Patrol facility. We've waited because there were some access issues coordinating with the city of Savannah. The property itself is unincorporated. It's one parcel on that backside that is unincorporated. It's surrounded by city of Savannah. Every city has annexed everything else. It's in the back of that community neighborhood that's constructed over there. It's the reserves. So access to it is through City of Savannah streets. City of Savannah has not wanted boat ramp traffic through the neighborhood. And we've tried to leave all this discussion to the Corps because it's their issue right now. Until we take the property, it's the Corps' issue. And so we haven't wanted to take the property any sooner to start on the Marine Patrol because we want these issues worked out. They finally have worked out, I think, an access route with the city of Savannah that'll take it not through so much through the neighborhood. It's a long route around and comes around. And the city, as of right now, says they are okay with it, but they're finalizing those plans. Once the access is worked out, then we'll start design on Marine Patrol, but we're waiting for that access to be worked out first because we don't want to get ahead of it. The Corps is obligated to build that boat ramp, so they're motivated to work all those issues out.
Commissioner Farrell has a question.
I'm very much in favor of, I'm glad they're putting in another boat ramp to access all the waters around Chatham County. I do question the location of the Marine Patrol being right up on the South Carolina border. And I understand the difficulty of finding a location, but certainly would seem more feasible to have it more centrally located within the county because we are a county of tremendous amount of surface water in the saltwater creeks and rivers. The Teuton's Fishing Camp property seemed like the most logical place to put the Marine Patrol. Has that property been looked at lately for acquisition?
I actually agree that it's a better location, but it is in private ownership, and I looked at it more recently, and it transferred more recently for a good bit more than what it had gone for before. And so we were thinking, well, the value of it now, it would be far more expensive than what it's coming.
Well, price being what it is, we understand that pricing goes up over time. I think the overreaching issue is where's the best location in the county? You've got water going up to South Carolina, and you've got water going all the way in Chatham County all the way to Bryan County. So putting it either on the Bryan County line or the South Carolina line just doesn't seem to be the most efficient way to move boats and stuff around the county, to have them all stacked up at one end. As I recall, there was a lot of constraints on that Teuton Fishing Camp that would make it difficult for a private owner to develop it to any great extent. I'm not sure how the pricing would be out of reach, even though it's been a few years since we've looked at it. So before we get too far on the Marine Patrol, I don't know that we shouldn't reevaluate that piece of property in particular. particular, and there may be others, and I know they're very, very limited to where you could have such an operation. But before we get too committed to that property, which that may be all that's left to choose from at this point, but it may be worth taking a look at and see what the feasibility is of acquiring that site.
Staff evaluated every vacant parcel with water access in Chatham County that would meet the size requirements needed. And that was one of them that was, but like I said, because of that recent transfer, the cost looks like it would be significant. And so then we're looking at, do you take this piece of not quite ideal property that you can get for free, or do you take a little more ideal, but you're taking out of the project budget for construction because we've had to spend so much on the land itself? And Marine Patrol has looked at it as well, and they agreed that they would rather have a better quality facility on Hutchinson than a lesser facility that's maybe better situated.
Well, I'd like for somebody to make a presentation to the board of directors, since that's their final say-so as to which way we go, as to, sometimes short-term expediency is not long-term.
Is it large enough?
Yes, it is.
We'll come back to you with that. As Ms. Cooley said, we've kind of done an exhaustive kind of search through the county. I know the chief and his folks with the engineering, they've looked at a number of different sites, but we'll definitely come back to you on that.
Because I just, in looking at the site, it's not terribly large, and if it is encumbered in some environmental way, I don't know, but I would like to see what the options are.
We can do that.
But I know there were some environmental restrictions on the property.
We can do that.
Adams.
Say a presentation from staff to the board before we move forward.
Yes.
May very well be that one site is better than the other, but I'd like to take one more look at it before we head off in one direction or the other.
Okay.
Is it possible to get an update on the SEMA facility? I see it looks like we spent over $2 million. So what have we spent that on so far?
Yes, sir. We'll provide that to you. That's one of the things on our to-do list. We are waiting on some grant funding that we hope that we'll get a final word on that in about the 1st of October. But we'll definitely provide you a breakdown of what we spent so far with the SEMA building.
And most of that's architectural design.
I was gonna say that's design.
For $2 million?
It's yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got it.
I will say that generally, design costs are between 10 to 12% of your overall construction budget. So yes, if you look at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions online? I'll go to 5.
6.
6, I'm sorry.
Moving on to 6.
Yeah.
And again, as I mentioned when we were back on our column, sales tax 6 is one that we have probably what appears to be the most money sitting in, besides 7 because that's the new. And you'll see on our list of what we've done, talk about what's outstanding. So we've completed 19 of the total 31 projects, which seems like we should have spent more money, but if you look at what is outstanding in 6, and the reason that we have so much money and so few projects is because of that. SEMA is one of them, and that's $29 million. Again, this Quaco Road has $7 million. So we have a lot of funds that appear to be sitting there, but they're in really big projects, and that is why. the number of projects that we have remaining is not significant, but the magnitude of those projects is.
One of the projects that we want to highlight in 6 is library, for the Oak Mall Branch Library. We have purchased property on Eisenhower. And right now, the library board has applied for some grant funding to supplement our budget to hopefully get that library built. We've got some good news. They made it through the first round of the congressional spending phase. So they've got $3 million in congressional money that they're looking at. Plus, we're looking at some state funding. So I've got my fingers crossed. Hopefully, by the end of the year, we'll have enough money to go ahead and start construction of the new Oak Mall Branch Library. Any other questions on 6?
Any question?
See, we have some money set aside for a dog park, which has been discussed for many, many years. Do you have any sites in, for this?
One of the sites, and I'll get Parks and Recreation, we looked at a dog park over there on Sally Moon. We've got our Winsome Lake there behind where the old public works facility was. We looked at doing a dog park there because we've got one. We don't have anything on that part of the county for a dog park. So that was one location that we've looked at, but we hadn't finalized that. So we're still in the process of planning.
Do we have a range in square footage or acreage that we're looking at?
I don't think so. Like I said, we're still in the planning process with that.
Because I remember years ago, Pat Monahan had mentioned that section of county property on Montgomery Crossroads, bordered by Montgomery Crossroads, Truman Parkway, and Lake Mare, as a possible site for a dog park that could be, you could park at Lake Mare and walk over there if we could fence it in and, make it safe for dogs to run without getting run over by a car. That might be a good location. And there's another location that I can think of where the county has some, piece of right-of-way off the Truman Parkway, Whitfield Avenue, and the police precinct. There's a spot of land there that we own that may lend itself to being a dog park.
One of the things that we, in the initial plannings with the Parks and Recreation staff, we want to tie that all into the Truman Trail runs parallel right there at the old public works site. So we thought, as you indicated, they could park at Lake Mare, pick up the trail there, walk the dog over to the dog park, and then walk back. So you have a safe access to the dog park. So we'll make note of that, but that's one of the things that Parks and Recreation, they've got on their list too. Because we want to develop that.
Yeah, maybe we could do 2 of them, one at Williamson and one at Lake Mare.
Yeah.
Then you could put them on the leash and walk between them. And I don't think it'd be that high cost of a project to turn that one piece right there by the Truman. I'm not sure what the site looks like behind Williamson. I hadn't been back there in a long time.
Okay.
I know in Atlanta, they have some dog parks that are really privately owned, like restaurants and bars. And then the dog park is part of that environment. And so it could be something we could do as a public-private partnership, if we could find somebody to work with on that. Very popular there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions on 6? think we're gonna hold off on 7.
Hold on on that.
Okay. Well, as I indicated, this is the format that we're gonna try to present these in on a quarterly basis. If there's information that you see here that you want, that we've left out, or if you want to see it in a different format, please let us know. I also want to make sure that you have a chance to take with you and look at your leisure the list of completed sales tax projects, which is a really long list. And I think this list is something that, county should be proud of, because we've done a lot in this community using the SPLOST money. So, again, if you have any additional questions or need any additional information on any of the projects, just let us know and we'll provide that for you.
All right. Thank you all, and as the manager said, please check out, we have that presentation for.
Yes, Ms. Hillary's going to hand it out.
Okay.
To you.
Good. Make sure you take your GDOT information with you, okay? Explore it as your leisure, so that, again, Commissioner McMurray is here on the 6th at noon. Please try to make yourself available for that time, all right? Because very seldom, and it's very rare for us to get him here. But he promised to come himself, and he's bringing his staff. And I want them to go through their projects and go through what their recommendations are and give it to you firsthand rather than you hearing it from me.
Remember, we also have the Chatham Municipal Association meeting that night in Tybee, and we were going to try to do both of them at the same time, but since the commissioner asked that the other counties be involved, we just shifted to a lunch meeting. So we'll have the DOT briefing that afternoon at lunch, and then at 6 o'clock that evening, we'll be at Tybee for the Chatham Municipal Association meeting. So please mark your calendar. Okay. Any other questions? I think we got lunch. We got lunch, Daniel? Okay, we got lunch and
I didn't know that.
I smell it.
You smelled it?
I didn't know that either.
Because I've got another meeting.
I didn't know that.
Seems like I remember they said this originally was going from 10 to 1.
We're gonna eat back there.